It was an infanticide that shocked Brazil and even transcended borders. The French newspaper Le Monde followed the case. The president at that time, Lula da Silva, asked for prudence from the population and of the 5-year-old girl who supposedly lost her life by falling from the second floor. The mysterious intruder, the witnesses, and the trial. The day they were convicted, people set off fireworks. In today's video, I'm going to tell you the story of Isabella Nardoni, the crime of a girl that shook all of Brazil. Despite the emergency personnel's attempts to resuscitate her for 34 agonizing minutes, Isabela seems not to breathe. She is battered, and this is not surprising because less than an hour ago she fell from the 6th floor and her body crashed into the garden of a building complex in a middle-class neighborhood called Macei. This in the city of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Isabela is inert, but there are her father, her stepmother, her mother, the doorman, some neighbors, and the paramedics all holding their breath waiting for a miracle that is never going to come. Isabella Nardoni is declared lifeless between those last moments of the night of March 29, 2008 and the first of Sunday the 30th. She is only 5 years old. The next day the entire society is moved, and the day after that, and on for several months. The story would cross borders and would be one of the infanticide cases that received the most press in the history of that country. The security officer who covered the night shift at the London building heard a loud noise coming from outside. It was dark at that moment and he couldn't see well, so he leaned a little further to see what looked like a lump in the front yard. He approached, and on the grass he saw the small body of a girl. A neighbor from the first floor also heard something and went out to the balcony from where he observed Isabela collapsed. It was this same resident who said, during the reconstruction of the events, that Isabela's father had knelt down and had put his right ear on the girl's heart, and that he himself had advised them not to move their daughter. Isabela's father, Alexandre Nardoni, who was 28 years old at the time, and his wife Anna, Carolina Jatova, 24 years old, former law student and Isabela's stepmother, are present at the scene. Alexandre screams in desperation and suggests that a thief broke into his apartment, broke the child protection, and threw his daughter out the window. Ana Carolina Jatova hysterically calls her husband's ex and Isabela's mother, Ana Carolina Oliveira. The mother, who was eating nearby at that moment, doesn't understand much of what is being yelled at her, but thinks that Isabela has fallen into a pool, so she asks them to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation and rushes to this place. She arrives before the ambulance, which takes about 40 minutes. The issue was not that Isabela had fallen into the pool, but that she had fallen from her 6th floor apartment. That's when she realizes the situation is extremely serious, worse than she thought. She doesn't move her, but kisses her and speaks to her ear. She puts her hand on her heart and feels weak but rapid beats. She tells her that she loves her, to hang on, that they are coming to get her. The scene is heartbreaking for everyone. When the paramedics arrive, they load Isabela and her mother into the ambulance. They try in vain to revive her, but unfortunately Isabela loses her life in the emergency vehicle. At least that's where they tell her mother. During this moment in the story is when the investigation begins. Alexandre, Nardoni, Yana, Carolina, Jatova go to the police station and there they give statements. The father's account is as I will be telling you. That day, after visiting the grandparents, they went with his wife and the 3 kids to the supermarket. Isabela from his first marriage was 5, Pietro was 3, and Kawa was 11 months old. His relationship with his new wife resulted in the last 2. When they returned home, they drove the car into the garage. Since Isabela was asleep, They decided that he would go up to the apartment first with her in his arms, and so he did. He laid her down in the guest room bed, turned on the bedside light and also the light in the kids' room. He locked the door and went back down to the garage to help his wife with Pietro and Cagua. He estimates that Isabela was left alone for between 5 and 10 minutes. When they came back in, Alexandre saw the light in Isabela's room on, but she was not where he had left her. He noticed the hole in the safety net of the window in the younger children's room. He looks out and sees that Isabela has fallen in the garden. The police believe this version of the couple's story and immediately go out to look for the intruder. They search the basement and the garage of the building, look around the surroundings, close off the apartment and leave 2 police officers on duty, but not a single trace of the criminal. And this is when the first suspicions about the father and the stepmother appear. The press will see the case grow second by second. In fact, it would reach the prestigious French newspaper Le Monde, and that's when the public opinion instantly takes sides with Isabela. The parents, especially the stepmother, start to be deeply hated. Every time they go to testify, a crowd violently lunges at them, shouting. Marches and more marches start to happen, and the suspects face real risks of lynching. By this time, the people are enraged. Such is the magnitude of the case that the president of Brazil at that time was Lula da Silva. He asked Brazilians for prudence, trying to calm them down, but the public opinion does not obey. Each suspect is booed in the street and runs risks of reprisals from the public. The violent echoes of what happened surprise everyone, including the police. The chief in charge of the investigation was named Fernando Neves, and he intends to move quickly so as not to put the witnesses in danger. But something was going to happen with this person that I'll tell you about later. As the days go by, this story about the father doesn't make sense to anyone, not even the investigators. Nobody believes what this man had said. It was implausible that someone had breached the good security of the building, which was also on a property surrounded by high walls that in turn had fences and alarms that would go off if someone had tried to trespass. There were also no signs that they had entered, and the apartment door had not been forced. Plus, nothing was missing from the couple's belongings. As if that wasn't enough, there was a trail of blood visible to the naked eye that went from the entrance door to the couch. In the laundry room, they found a washed cloth with drops of blood and also a knife and a pair of scissors with traces of the same fiber that was sent for analysis. The results had indicated that it was a material identical to that which made up the concentration grid of the window. There were some investigators who admitted the possibility that the girl's stepmother, Anna Carolina Jatova, was not waiting in the car in the garage as Alexander had told the police. Even many suspected that they would have tried to eliminate her. All the blood stains could indicate this. Alexandra's father, tax lawyer Antonio Nardoni, and his daughter Christian Nardoni were mentioned as those who would have helped the couple afterwards to clean up the scene. They obviously denied it, but I'll tell you a little more about this later as well. In other statements, 2 neighbors from the building claimed to have heard a fight and a girl screaming for help that night. The interrogations were going at full speed. The father and stepmother were trying to cast blame and suspicion outside of the home, the poor security of the building, the envy of the neighbors, and even a worker with whom Alexandra would have had a problem. But the evidence and testimonies collected were dismantling everything they said. On the other hand, the forensic examination revealed that the cause of death had been a cardiopulmonary arrest and that there was clear evidence of induced suffocation. The experts who analyzed the body also commented that Isabela would have been thrown by the wrists due to the marks they found on her hands and knees. One of her wrists had a fracture that had occurred while she was alive. She had a skull trauma, and the fact that she had her tongue between her teeth and also had injuries to her heart and lungs would indicate that she had been suffocated. The autopsy also showed that she had been beaten because she had a bruised face, marks on her neck that suggested strangulation, and a wound on her forehead. That wound would have been the one that left the trail of blood from the entrance to the sofa, and as they concluded, it was made by an object that could be a key or a ring, weapons that were rare for a thief or a murderer. The experts also added that there were traces of fractures that would be prior to the fall. The small traces of blood were visible to the naked eye throughout the apartment. In the room, in the hallway, on the door handle, and on the sheets where the father had said he had put Isabela to bed. They also found blood in the family car. So on May 7th of 2008, Judge Fawcett issued a preventive arrest to the couple. They were arrested at the apartment of Ana Carolina Jatova's mother. The evidence was putting together a puzzle that suggested that that night before Isabela's death, a violent fight took place between the couple. In the midst of this tangle of versions, Captain Nives, who was leading the investigation, the one I was telling you about a while ago, was accused of abusing a 5-year-old child, so he fled and took his own life a few days later. This scandal was huge. The plot was becoming increasingly complex. It would later be known that his story had nothing to do with Isabela, but what happened clouded the case even more for several weeks. The focus of the investigation was now on the family. The supermarket that the Nardonis claimed to have visited that night handed over the images from their security cameras to the police. There they saw a normal and ordinary family, but something powerfully caught the detectives' attention. Alexandra didn't have the same clothes on in that footage that he wore a while later when he went down to see his fallen daughter in the garden. The experts set out to rescue this shirt that Alexandra wore in the supermarket, so they found it and analyzed it to discover that on both sleeves there were remnants of the fiber from the safety net of the window cut with scissors. So the test would be the key at that moment. But let me tell you a little about this family. Isabela de Oliveira Nardoni, who by the way in Brazil children first carry their mother's surname, although in this case she was known by her father's surname. She was born on April 18, 2002 in Sao Paulo. Her mother, Ana Carolina Oliveira, was only 17 years old and her father, Alexandre Nardoni, was about to enter university to study law. That's why Alexandra didn't find the news of the pregnancy amusing at all. Even though they were together for about 3 years, the truth is that at one point she went to live with her own parents because she believed he was cheating on her. When Isabela was 11 months old, Ana Carolina Oliveira ended the relationship with Alexandre. What she thought was true, he was cheating on her with a woman who had the same name as her, Ana Carolina Jatova. Sometime later, Alexandre formalized his cohabitation with that woman, and they had the 2 children that Pietro and Cagua Alexandre already mentioned to you, and Isabela's mom came to a legal agreement. He would pass her a monthly alimony, and in turn, he would have the right to 2 visits of his daughter per month. But Ana Carolina Jatova was sickly jealous of her husband's ex. That's why she was bothered by Isabela's presence, even though she only had to put up with her on the weekend. The neighbors assured that when the little girl went to her father's house, the fights and screams were a constant. It would also be known later that the paternal grandparents prevented Ana Carolina Jatova from being alone with Isabela. Apparently, these people suspected something. A neighbor claimed to have heard the paternal grandmother say that she was afraid that this woman would do something to her granddaughter. The truth is that Isabela used to return to her mother's house ahead of time. She didn't get along well with her father's new partner, but she hadn't told her mother much. Witnesses stated that Alexandre seemed to be a good person when he was alone, but that in the presence of his wife he completely transformed. She was extremely jealous and tortured him with her scenes. Returning to the crime, the prosecutor of the case, Francisco Sembrenelli, reconstructed that scene. For this, they made a doll with the same weight and size as Isabela. He concluded that Isabela had been delicately thrown from the 6th floor, something that obviously a stranger would not do, who was a murderer. With this, he refuted the father's and stepmother's version that an intruder had thrown her after cutting the protective mesh of a bedroom. According to the prosecutor, a criminal would throw the girl in any way, not with as much care as they found her. Isabela was introduced through the hole in the net of her brother's room while being held by the wrists, and then was let go into the void even when she was still alive. The motive is speculated to have been to cover up what happened moments before due to the stepmother's jealousy. The evidence found by the police would indicate that Isabela was beaten inside the fort, where she lost blood and then was grabbed by the neck by the stepmother, who tried to suffocate her. Alexander is believed to have cut the protective mesh from the window of one of the rooms from where he threw her to simulate his intruder alibi. Evidence of this is that bloodstains were found in the car and in the apartment, also marks from the protective mesh on the father's shirt, and his fingerprints on the bed next to the window from where Isabela was thrown. Phone records would also be vital in unraveling this mess. Anna Carolina Chatova called her own father and her father-in-law from the crime scene. When reconstructing the case, these calls allowed them to be placed in time and space. The times didn't seem to be enough for an assailant to enter, cut the fence, throw the girl, and escape. Besides, there was no reason for him to do this. The company responsible for tracking the global positioning system installed in Alexandre's Ford car revealed that it was turned off at 11:36 with 11 seconds, this at night, that this type of device sends satellite signals to an operation center to monitor all the movements of the vehicle and can even tell at what time the car's engine was turned on or off. The time interval between the moment the engine was turned off and the first rescue call, which was at 11:49 with 59 seconds of the night, is about 13 minutes, very little time for things to happen as the father had declared. So finally, the trial for the death of Isabel began on March 22nd of 2010. One of the first to testify would be the mother. She spoke of the sickly jealousy of her ex's partner and revealed that once Alexander threatened her with death because she demanded food. She also maintained that on the fatal day, when Anna Carolina Jatova called her, she heard her say it was all her fault. The defendants testified separately and denied the crime. Anna Carolina Jatova cried and said she had a very good relationship with Isabela. On the other hand, he assured that the police had forced him to admit the crime, but that it had been accidental, and said he did not remember the theory of an intruder entering the apartment. The prosecutor insisted on the question of why he had never thought of helping his daughter when she was still alive. First, he said it was because he was in shock. Then, when the prosecutor asked him again, he claimed that a neighbor had told him not to touch her. So they were convicted by a jury for first-degree murder. On March 27, 2010, the judge announced the sentence. Alexandre Nardoni would have to serve 31 years, 1 month, and 10 days in prison, while Anna Carolina Jatova 26 years and 8 months in jail. Television networks broadcasted the reading of the sentence leave. The public opinion and the press had awaited that day with great anxiety. Outside the court, a crowd celebrated the conviction with fireworks. Meanwhile, the facade of Isabela's father's house dawned covered with paint. In an interview, Ana Carolina Olivera maintained that Isabela had a great unconditional love for her father. There she confessed that the hardest moment of the day was when she arrived home after work. At that moment, she would linger and feel her daughter's absence more, which is why she had returned to work soon. She remembered that they often slept together and that she would tell Isabela a different story every night because Isabela would ask for it. In the interview, she also admitted that she prayed for strength to endure what she had to live through. By the end of the trial, she was 25 years old, a bank employee, and expressed relief saying justice was served, however my daughter will never return. 6 years after the crime, Ana Carolina Oliveira remarried and had a son who is now 4 years old. Ana Carolina Jatova was granted semi-open prison regime progression in July of 2017, while Alexander obtained the same benefit in April of 2019. They have the right to work outside of prison and to temporary exits, while they continue to claim that they are innocent and that the intruder did exist. The defendants gave contradictory statements many times and eventually separated. The apartment of the tragedy was sold a long time ago, and the couple's children live with their maternal grandparents and do not use their parents' surnames Jatova or Nardoni. The family always chose to protect them and didn't even take them to visit their parents in prison. Pietro is 16 and Kawa is 13 years old today. The paternal family avoids visiting the cemetery where Isabela is because even today they tend to be attacked by people. Nobody in Brazil forgets Isabela. On the other hand, the case also divided the experts. There were some who believed that her death was accidental. Even Alexandra and his wife on a show called Fantastic were subjected to a lie detector test. In the report, they are seen being polite at a friend's house where they answered the questions. He, for his part, never cried, while she did throughout the entire interview. The stepmother assured that she had always treated Isabela the same as her two children, that all three received the same treatment, that Isabela was a cheerful and docile child, that the lie detector pointed to truth in this, and that her children cry because they miss her, which the machine also pointed towards the truth. When Alexandre said that he couldn't go to the cemetery to say goodbye to her because of the people who were harassing them and for his own safety, the device indicated a lie. And when he assured that their lives before the incident were happy, always joking and having a good time, it also indicated a lie. His wife assured that she loved that Isabela played, that she did everything to make her happy, and that they were a very close-knit family. But the lie detector again said it was a lie. When Ana Carolina Jatova said, "We are totally innocent," the device marked inaccuracy. On the other hand, the prosecution wanted to investigate if Isabela's paternal grandfather, whom I told you about at the beginning, had been involved in covering up the crime. The requests were motivated by the testimony of two witnesses who reported the grandfather's alleged involvement in his granddaughter's death. The witnesses are employees of the prison where Ana Carolina Jatova is serving her sentence. They reportedly said that Ana Carolina Jatova confirmed to them that she had hit Isabela in the couple's car and that the fight had continued in the apartment. Believing the little girl was dead, Ana Carolina allegedly called her lawyer father-in-law. He supposedly suggested that they both simulate a domestic accident with the girl, and it was then that Alexander allegedly threw his daughter out the window. Jatova also admitted that he was very surprised when the experts said that Isabela had been thrown out alive. Antonio Nardoni began to be investigated by the Homicide Department in 2015. He, for his part, denied the allegations in an interview in March 2018. He said his family was mourning for Isabela and added that his son and his former daughter-in-law were innocent. With all this, the story seems to have no end, but it did for Isabela, who lived a very short existence and who since the morning of March 31st, 2008 rests in the Parques dos Pinheiros Cemetery in San Pablo. She would be a 17-year-old teenager today, but that cannot be because 12 years ago, that father who had given her life threw her to the arms of death. He and I were playing a game of chasing each other around the apartment. If you like this video, on Instagram as Pepe Misterio 1010 On Facebook as Pepe Misterio Misterio 1010, on YouTube as Pepe Misterio and as Misterio Pepe. My name is Pepe Misterio and this is Pepe Misterio.